Okay, so we went over asset management. We set it up for loading our map. We've seen that it was loading the map. And we did our texture atlas. We loaded it. We don't have anything linked up to actually use it yet. So I have the state component open right now. Let me close a number of this stuff. What we need to do, though, is we need to actually start linking up everything. So we are going to have to build an animation component and then start setting up our stuff for our entity manager. Now, our animation component is going to be kind of mirroring what our state is doing. So our state, we have directions. We have up, down, left, right, and none. None being for let's say static entities that are not really moving, but they still could have an animation state. So we want them to do stuff, but we don't want to have to give them a direction. And then we have, that's for directions, but for states we have if they're idle, moving, talking, attacking. If they're hit, they're preparing to attack. Let's say if they're immobile, or they're dying. So the immobile could be like they got froze from some type of being hit, or something happened like they were electrocuted or something. So we have those. We need to start actually putting all the animations in. Now for what we have so far, we can have idle where they're not moving. And you could have an idle animation, say they're bouncing around on their feet. And then for moving, it is going to depend on the direction that they're facing. So if they are moving and they have a direction of up, down, left, right, you need to have them actually turned that way and then start cycling through that animation while they're doing it. Okay? So we need to create an animation component. So let's go right click and do new, and we're going to create an animation component. Okay. And this animation component is going to need to implement the component from Ashley, and it's going to need to implement the poolable. Really hate that it writes it like that. Dot poolable. Go away. Okay. Now it's telling us that we got to implement some methods. The reset is the one that we have to implement. Okay. So let's think about the animation stage. So for an animation component, I'm going to go ahead and, just like what we did for this state, set up an enum for the animation states. Animation state. And then we want up, down, left, right, really any type of animation that you have, you need to be setting up. So if I had a static person, like an NPC, he's talking. If I have, and this is going to kind of look at, so we got talking, attacking, hit, preparing to attack, immobile, and dying. So talking, attacking, hit, preparing to attack, immobile, and dying. Let's copy those. Okay, so those are all of our animation states that if we set up an animation, we want to be able to do it. We also need to have private float a time, not privateer, a time for the animation. So the animation component is going to hold the time that it's taken for the animation so that we can cycle through. So if we are setting that how fast we want the animation to go, we need to set up the time for the animation component. So as we're doing the animation, we can update it with delta time. Okay, and then we can set here Boolean, let's say, is looping, if we wanted the animation to loop, and we could set it to false and then be able to change it later on. And then we're going to end up having to have a couple things. So here I'm going to set a array map, and the array map is going to be really just so that I can link up stuff. So I need to be able to access the information for the animation based off the state, and the animation component is going to hold all of the animations that I can look up in the array map by the state, so that if they're in a up animation state, then I need to be able to pull that up animation. So I'm going to set this by the animation state and by an animation, and this would be the one that I want because I'm not using 3D models, and I'm just going to call it animations. And okay, let's see. So now we need a constructor. The constructor, I'm going to pass in the I don't need a constructor, do I? We need a method for adding an animation component. Okay. Add animation. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I could really just like link them together. Add animation, animation state, state, and I need the animation. Animation. Okay. So that method, I'm going to take this animations dot put, and then I'm going to put the state, and I'm going to put the animation in it. And then I'm going to return the item itself, the animation component, back so that I could actually just link those all together and just set them all up. That means that as soon as I create an animation component, I'm going to have to create that new array map. Okay, so I need a couple other methods for setting up the animation component. I need to be able to get the animation based off of the state. So animation state, return animations dot get, and then I can put in the state that I'm looking for. Okay, because each entity that has animations is going to have certain states for that animation that I can pull. We need to be able to get that time. Float get time, return time. We need to be able to set the time. Public float set time, float time, this dot time equals time. That's not float, that's void. And set for looping. So public void set looping, Boolean is looping. Sounds good. This dot is looping equals is looping. And then our reset method, we have to set that stuff back. So time is equal to 0.0f animations dot clear. Is there any other ones that I need? Animations dot. I think I want to remove all. Remove, does it give me that? Nope. Okay. All right, so I clear it out, and then is looping is going to be back to false. So anything that I originally set is going to reset. So that's my animation component. And then in my entity manager, any entity that has an animation, I need to set it up. So let's go to our entity manager, and we need to make those changes. All right, so we have our add state, add player, add collision, add body type. Let's go to another one, private entity, add animation component. We need the entity, string entity name. Okay. So we're going to do another, so this is the same way that we've set up all of our other ones. So animation component equals engine dot create component animation component dot class. All right. And I need to set it in my mappers. Okay, let's go ahead and set that in here. Public static final component mapper animation component get for animation component dot class. All right, so we have the animation component. Now the way that we've been setting these up is that we've been using a switch to go by entity name, and then using that to kind of link our stuff. So right now, I know that I have a player. We started doing player enemy coin for type, but that hasn't really been added yet. But let's go ahead and do that. So case player. Now what happens with the player? This is where we need to add the animation component. So animation component dot add animation. And so we could say animation component dot up. And then we can add that animation. Now, since it's only really ever going to be used there, we already have, we don't have our asset manager in here yet. So let's look. All right, so we need that asset manager in here to be able to pull our information. So private my asset manager. Let's add that asset manager. Or we could just pull it from the game and set up a method to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. So because we're passing the game around, we could technically do that. We could just pull the asset manager from our original game and just put a getter to get our asset manager. All right, so this dot my asset manager equals my asset manager. All right, so now we have that asset manager, and we want to start setting up. So for my player, I have multiple animations. So I'm going to go in my assets. I'm going to look at my Atlas manager. So let's pull this up. I'm going to have to use Control F. So I have Redbeard is my main player. So I have down as my region for the animation. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 animations for down, 4 animations for left, 4 animations for right. And that was all because we set up in our input. So if I go to our input and I look at them, Redbeard down _1, _2, _3, _4. So that gets set as a region. So what I want to do, and I'm only using it for that player. If I was using it in multiple areas, I might, actually hold on to the name. But since I'm only doing it for the player, I can just actually leave it like that. So let's go to here. I'm going to put a space because this is going to be quite a bit. We are adding a we need to add the atlas. So we are running this. Let's do a texture atlas. Private texture atlas, and after we create this, that my asset manager, then atlas is equal to my asset manager dot get texture asset, and then I need to do that correct file name. So that would be in my output. So sprites output, sprites output slash Redbeard run atlas dot atlas. Okay, so that is giving me my atlas. I'm not doing a new texture atlas. I'm just pulling the one that I have stored in my asset manager, and then adding those pieces. All right, so I'm going to do a new animation, and the animation is going to require, I want to do for 2D, not 3D, is going to require a couple things. So because I only have 4 frames, I want each second, I want all 4 frames to run. So I'm going to give it a duration for my frame rate, so 0.25 f, so a quarter of a second per frame, and then I can switch. So atlas dot find, and I have 2 methods. I have find region and find regions. Regions is for when we are doing animations, because we want to pull all of those frames that have the similar name. Find region is when I just need one of them. So if I am doing a texture region, an atlas texture region, I can just set it up like that. Yeah, texture region. If I'm doing a static, I just do texture region. So I'm doing animations, so I need to find the animations, and then I have to type the name exactly how I would see it in here. So I'm looking for the up one. So red beard up. This is the name that I want. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. That's for frame 1, 2, 3, and 4. In my entity manager, I am putting that inside quotes. That is my texture region. Okay, that is done. All right. So the animation component is going to hold that animation. I don't need to, have the animation anywhere else since it's getting stored here. So I'm going to have to do another one. And now, like what I said, because it's returning the animation component, I could plug in and add another animation this way. Okay. And it's going to call that add animation, which I would need to do my next component. So I could say that I want down, and I want another new animation. Again, 0.25. And actually, I'm just going to copy this right here. All right. Now I'm not looking for Redbeard up. I'm looking for Redbeard down. And let's go ahead and double check. Right, left, Redbeard down. I'm looking for exact spelling. Redbeard down. Again, I'd have to do my other animations. So new animation. And this would be Redbeard left, left, left. Let's make sure I got the same name. There's left. And this is going to be for the state of left. Let's go ahead and do that again. We got right. All right, JHT. All right, JHT. Now, I think that's it that I need for my player. Okay. So I would need to do this for all of my enemies, depending on which enemy I have. You're going to have to link up your correct animations. And you're pulling them all from the regions in your texture atlas. So depending on which enemy I have, I would switch the case, and then based off that entity name, I'm going to have, all of those pieces. So the snake hit, and for mine, I have skeletons and snakes and dragons. I would need to set those. Now, I only have, for the player, I only have these 4 animations, but if you had a dying animation, you could have that in there. Your attacking animation, leaving animation, idle animation, you can set all of those based off your animation component. So that would be enough for that one. Let's go ahead and break out of that. So that's for the player. Now we could do for the enemy. Again, it would depend on what enemy name you have. So for mine, I can't just do general enemy because I have different ones. But for coins, if you had, say, multiple different coins, you would go ahead and go through all those and continue on. So for my switch, that's all that I have. And once I get through my switch, entity.add, and then you want to add that animation component, and then you're going to return the entity. Okay, so that add animation component is set up. Set type wasn't used. Type. Okay. So here I can add my animation, entity, comma, entity name. I'm passing in all that information, and he should be linked up with the animation component. The texture atlas is actually pulling that stuff by regions from my asset manager, and I've linked up the animations. So in the next video, we're going to actually set up those animations for being able to run for our players. So we should be able to start seeing stuff. All right. Good luck. Have fun.